Hi guys, welcome to today's session. We're going to be carrying on with this Waterhouse copy that we've been working on for a good few weeks now. Sort of split into two, so we had, I think, the first 5 or 6 sessions I did some time ago, and they were sort of the initial block in getting it up to a reasonable level of detail, and then the last few sessions we've been working on refining over the top of that. And we probably, just because of how time consuming it is, we'll take another break, probably after this session or the next one, before coming back to it, and I'll be working on more on the background, but hopefully we'll get a reasonable amount of the figure done by the time we stop. So I'm thinking probably we'll finish the hair, so the hair is what I'm going to be working on today, and then we'll work on the drapery down to about the point where she's got a sort of silk sort of shawl draped over her knees. If you want the reference, it's the links in the description, so it's a painting by Waterhouse that we're working from. If you haven't watched the previous videos, I recommend watching all the way through just to see how the process builds up. But yeah, I'm going to be working on the hair today. So the first thing I want to do is just take a little bit of my medium. In terms of materials, it's the same as the previous sessions, but basically I'm up to a sort of maybe slightly more than half oil to mineral spirit mixture at this point of the painting. So that's the medium I'm using, and then the palette is Ivory Black, Ultramarine Blue when we need blues, although we probably won't be using them today, Alizarin Crimson, Burnt Umber, Cadmium Red, Cadmium Yellow, and Yellow Ochre and White. So reasonably kind of extensive palette, bigger than some others that we use. And you can obviously modify if you're working on your own copy. You can sort of modify that palette as you need to, or kind of base it on whatever you've got available as well. So obviously working on the hair today, it's mostly kind of not quite as orange as I've painted it in, so partly we're going to be turning it a bit more of a kind of brown gold colour. It's going to be what we're working on, and also just continuing this sort of sense of the texture of the hair and the sheen and so forth. And also how it sort of tangles into the hands as well, which is an interesting element. So the first thing I want to do is just oil in, which we've done before with this painting, I think. So just take a tiny bit of oil and just make sure everything's saturated, and yeah, it looks pretty good, pretty saturated. If you have any excess, you don't want too much. If you have any excess when you've done this, you can maybe wipe it off with a bit of kitchen towel. So I've got a little bit more than I would like just down over her shoulder. So I'm just taking a clean piece of kitchen towel and just mopping that up. You can see it just kind of slightly saturates what we're looking at, which we need to do if we're working over the top. And then I'm going to begin just by taking some burnt umber and some medium, and I'm just going to kind of immediately go in, and I want to just darken out this section of sort of hair and shadow that sort of, she's got this sort of four section of hair which is blocking out light from this other part of the hair below. Bit of a glaze we've got going on here, and the pure burnt umber is probably not quite dark enough, so I'm going to go for some black as well. So just ivory black now. That's a bit better. And that similar sort of glaze I can use just to sort of try to mute down a little bit some of these colours, so that, as I say, that oranginess could do with a little bit of grey. So I'm adding a little bit of white to my ivory black mixture and just glazing that over, so a thin wash using a reasonable amount of medium. Just trying to nudge these colours into a bit more of a kind of coppery direction. Using a little bit of Cad Yellow, Cad Red as well. Starting to mix them in. I'm trying to keep all my brushwork kind of moving in a direction that matches the flow of the hair. So whenever I'm then adding brushwork, it's going to be embellishing the texture of the hair as well as altering the colours. So I'm sort of mostly concerned with getting the colours right, but a byproduct of this correction work is that it's going to start to have a little bit more kind of interesting texture going on with the hair. So going for a little bit more Cad Yellow and white, kind of just more purely mixed for these highlights where the hair's kind of draped over or tangled in with the hands. I want to try to incorporate some slightly darker tones through this central section of hair. this parting also. And then the same goes for kind of moving across now to the far side. We also want this to go a bit darker too, so just using, again starting with the pure burnt umber, a bit of medium. I'm getting some quite nice textures out of this this brush. It's slightly old brush, so it's sort of got a little bit of a split to it, but it creates kind of a nice mimic of the hair textures that we're seeing. Don't want to overdo it, but it's a nice sort of little touch. So I'm just going back in with my kind of more soft round brush now and just neatening up some sections where it maybe got a little bit too sort of scratchy looking, that larger brush. It's all kind of just fine tuning, that's what all these stages are. It's just tweaking it back and forth until we get a good capture sort of feel for what's going on. Just going to zoom out and tilt down a little bit just as I work on slightly larger section of the painting, because we've got some hair that kind of drapes down below as well. And a few more sort of glazes of just pure black over these darkest areas. Of the hair. That's not too bad in general for this pass over the hair, I think. The original doesn't have, it's not super detailed the way the hair is painted, so I don't want to kind of go into lots of individual strands. It's quite a loosely painted hair, which is sort of typical for Waterhouse's style. But one other thing I might do is just, I might not quite get them finished, but I'm going to suggest a little bit of work doing some suggestion of the sort of pearls that she has sitting in her hair or kind of around her hands, because they're sort of missing, and it does make a bit of a difference to the overall effect. Just do a few final last touches over the hair itself before having a look at that. And also just establish a little bit of they sort of sit about here, so I'm just going to pop this in as a bit of a shadow for them. And then I'm just going to use, I think black and white will probably be sufficient as a sort of blue for the darker part of them, and then they just need a highlight. But they sort of sit, there's a few little points they sit. I'm just going to do the darker tone first, and then just paint the lighter tone into them. I'm being somewhat approximate, not super accurate with these. I'll see how they look, and then we can always go back and kind of rework them. Later if necessary. So I've just got little dark balls for them, and then I'm just going to take some brighter tone using just a smaller brush. I've got this little brush, and just use that to place highlights throughout them. I'm going to just pick up some white for some even little brighter points. As I say, not quite as delicate as the original, but we might have time to go back and kind of rework them. Probably one thing I could do to help them along is take a little bit of black using that smaller brush, and also just pop in some little sort of accents where they're casting shadows, as well as the highlight. And also just pop in a few little kind of reflections inside them, maybe capturing some of that hair colour, because they are pearls, so you're going to have a reflective surface that's going to kind of reflect back some of what surrounds them. Yeah, that's not too bad. And then I'm just going to finish. I feel like the kind of brightest portion, the highlight on this part of the hair, could do with being just a touch lighter relative to everything else. But I'm just using up all the paint, most of the paint I have on my palette, just to try to get a nice kind of flattish highlight color, because it's not sort of much higher chroma than the rest of the hair, just a little bit lighter. Something like that seems not too bad to me. So just about there, just a tiny little bit more colour just up there, and yeah, I think I'm happy with that now. So it's not totally finished. There's still some sort of things that we can do to work over the top of it, but it's not too bad. I think in terms of matching what we're kind of working from, so from the original Waterhouse painting itself. And as I say, I probably would maybe do another pass over it, whether we'll get it into the workshop or not. We'll see. But should give you an idea of the approach for hair and how we can kind of get it to work. Yeah, and on the whole, I'm pretty happy with how it looks. So that's it for this session. As always, you can follow us on YouTube to get all these videos. Any of the videos that I work on, all of them are added here, and loads of other content from other creators for OCAD. And you can also, if you're interested in getting feedback on work that you're doing from these courses, you can click the link through and find out what sorts of qualifications we offer and different options for learning how to paint, where you get actual tuition from myself and other expert tutors. So yeah, that's it. There'll be a 2-week break, I think, till the next one, and we'll probably be working on the drapery, as I say, next time. But it's definitely coming along. It takes time to kind of push things beyond a basic level, especially working at this scale. It's fairly large painting and fairly complex, but if you kind of work piece by piece like this, you kind of gradually get there, and yeah, it comes together nicely, and it's fun once everything's established. Doing this kind of detail work's an enjoyable experience. So yeah, I'll see you guys soon.